Yes, sir. I worked too hard to collect that money. I'm not about to let anyone steal it from me.
Hello and welcome back. In today's video, we'll be covering how Oblivion's dumbest NPC is actually right, plus all the annoying ways to fail the quest Go Fish, and finally, how only PC players can forcefully receive a huge bonus reward from Aelwyn in the quest. But first, we must commence the quest Go Fish, and we can do so when crossing the Imperial Bridge to exit the city. We see the first house on our left in the small settlement of Way. Outside is a Breton commoner named Aelwyn Merrowald, apparently a local fisherman whose clothing is suitable for a man of his profession, as he sports a pair of fishing waders and rough leather shoes.
Hello.
Approaching the fisherman for the first time, he will give us some insight on his current plight.
You know, stranger, there comes a time in every man's life when he has to admit that he's lost the fight. Well, I've fought and I've lost. Who did I lose to? Who is my great enemy? Oh, don't laugh. It's a bunch of damn fish.
If we choose to callously laugh in his face, he will get downright angry. Fish? Oh, that's dumb.
Ah, see, I knew you'd laugh. Some big hero you are. You're all the same. Nothing to do but laugh at an old man and his troubles.
After this speech, his disposition will rightly drop 60 points, and he will just say,
Come back to laugh at the pathetic old man, have we? To the pit with you. Leave me alone.
If we lowered his disposition below 20, which is most probable, he'll not even start a conversation with us, and a charm spell will be necessary to get his disposition over 20 and even begin to receive the quest.
Eh? You again? You ready to hear about an old man's troubles?
Sorry. I'm sorry. How can I help?
Go on and Wait. Help? Oh, well then. I'm a fisherman. Or at least I was. Until one of those slaughterfish damn near took my leg off. I was collecting their scales, see? I had a contract with this young alchemist. You wouldn't believe what he was paying for those scales. Then, last month, one of the bastards got a hold of my leg. Took me right out of the business. But this alchemist, he needs the scales right away.
We can then choose to take a further interest or leave, and if we choose, sorry, I have to go, he will respond by saying,
Fine then, I'll find someone else. Someone who isn't too busy to help a desperate old man.
Instead, if we choose, about those scales, he'll say,
The alchemist was paying so much for the scales that I'm close to having enough saved so that I can retire. But now I can't get out there to the lake. Not with this leg. I only needed 12 more scales. Can you believe it? I was so close. I've picked up a few things in my travel. If you head out there and bring me back the 12 scales that I need, I can make it worth your time. Help an old fisherman out, won't you?
A journal then updates. Aelwyn Merrowald at the Way settlement southwest of the Imperial City is looking to acquire 12 Rumaire slaughterfish scales to sell to a customer. He's asked me to do the legwork, no pun intended, as he's getting quite old and can't handle the difficult task. The Rumaire slaughterfish is a special breed of slaughterfish that can only be found in Lake Rumaire, directly north of Way. Now, before we explore passing or failing Aelwyn's quest, as arguably killing slaughterfish isn't the most riveting content you've ever seen, there are actually a slew of noteworthy quirks about Aelwyn and the quest that I'm excited to share. The first most folks can miss is that when raining, Aelwyn will state,
The fishing is best when it's raining like this. The fish all come right to the top. It's like they're waiting to be caught.
For me personally, it's that extra level of care that the developers put in that lends to Oblivion's charm. Another tidbit can be found inside of Aelwyn's home, as drying by the fireplace amongst the clutter is one of only 4 beggar shirts of this variety found in the entire game. All that a man needs. Function and style have been married perfectly. And finally, according to the wiki, Aelwyn's home was probably originally intended to be the site of the Chestnut Handy stables, as evidenced by both the fact that the Chestnut Handy faction is set as the owner, and that the X mark referenced outside the building is named Way Stables East. The Chestnut Stables, of course, being the only stables in Cyrodiil to not originally sell horses, thanks to the orc owner's appetite.
I am Brealus Gawe, and no, we don't sell horses, but we do eat well. The stables are owned by an orc, and you know, orcs and horses.
And is also the infamous birthplace of all modern-day microtransactions, with the much-maligned horse armor. But getting back to the task at hand, how do we fail this quest? And what are the consequences of Aelwyn's demise specifically? Well, it is advisable not to kill the Rumere slaughterfish before making this quest active, as it may lead to the marker just indefinitely pointing to the first fish, which is infuriating, of course. Aelwyn is also located very close to the wilderness, and he has a propensity to wander off and become wolf food.
Don't hurt me! Ah!
Upon his death, our quest updates. With Aelwyn's death, it's impossible to complete this quest. Now, if this does happen, PC users can rejoice, as they can resurrect him using the console command resurrect. However, console players are not so lucky. The only way to get Aelwyn's reward for the quest is if he physically hands it to you, as only a pittance can be found on his corpse if you kill him. So, we have to pass the quest first. So, what happens if we attempt to pass the quest Go Fish and earn its rumoured rewards? Well, heading down to the nearby pier, realising inside our full plate would sink like a stone, we instead opt to shed our cumbersome iron armour before jumping feet first into the lake. Wading out into the waters, we don't see anything. I think this is probably not the best way to fish. However, we suddenly feel the jaws as tight and treacherous as Oblivion's jagged teeth clamp down on our side and scream. Flailing and desperate, we don't actually see more than a dim shadow in the murky waters of our attacker before it's too late. To combat our invisible foe, we can then wisely cast a spell of Detect Life, aiding us in plumbing Lake Rumere's obscure depths, and slashing at the slimy, exposed scales of the slaughterfish spawn. We can pluck said scales from their hide when they're dead, and leave their corpses for the mud crabs to pick clean. This would also be a good time to share. I was inspired to make this video, not because killing slaughterfish is fun. In fact, the opposite. I, like many of you, believe Oblivion's waters are woefully underpopulated/overlooked, and would love to see The Elder Scrolls 6 be more of a Wayfarer title, where we could explore the sea by boat. However, it was actually a commenter, Russo-san, on the channel who shared. For anyone who's playing Oblivion on PC and likes fishing, EF's fishing mod is a pretty great and simple way to add functional fishing into the game. Fish, or Fishing in Cyrodiil, is also a great addition to EF's. The mod adds a ton of fish, plants, shipwrecks, treasures, trash, etc., just general content underwater. Congruently, the mod Clearer Underwater also really helps. These mods would almost make playing an Argonian for their water-breathing perk worthwhile. Speaking of which, after obtaining a dozen Rumere slaughterfish scales, we return to a pleased Aelwyn who greets.
I don't know what I'll do if you don't get those scales for me. I've saved so much for my retirement, but it's just not enough.
About those scales. You said a dozen will do, yes?
By the 9, you've got the scales! Thank you. Let it never be said that there are no kind souls in this world. I'll give you this ring in trade. I have no use for it anymore, but I imagine that they would be very valuable to someone like you. Thank you, stranger. You've shown me kindness, and I will think of you in the long, comfortable days ahead.
The quest Go Fish has now officially concluded, and the ring Jewel of Rumere is added to our inventory, which is a fantastic ring for non-Argonians, imparting water breathing on self, plus a minor boost to athletics. Now, it's definitely worthwhile for an early in-game reward, even if you just choose to sell it, as it's worth a tidy 2,550 gold. Speaking of rewards, how does one receive a forceful bonus? And why do console players get screwed over? Well, speaking to Aelwyn again, he remarks,
I'm looking forward to my retirement. Long days in the stable with the horses, long mornings in bed, and best of all, no more fish.
To which we can deviously inquire, oh, where are your savings, pray tell, old friend?
I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable telling you.
It's only
Yes?
after increasing Aelwyn's disposition over 70 he will share.
Thank you. How kind. Well, I'll tell you a secret. I took some of the money I saved and paid a mage to lock the rest of it away in a box inside my house. Nothing can open it except for this key right here. And there ain't no way anyone is getting this key while I'm still breathing. Yes, sir. I worked too hard to collect that money. I'm not about to let anyone steal it from me.
Over his dead body is a poor choice of words, as we can either opt to steal said key off a sleeping Aylwin, although it should be noted the key actually doesn't appear until the quest ends, so it's not worth trying to take it off him before, or we can simply fell the former fisherman and remove it from his corpse, as well as those handy scales to boot.
Ugh!
Left to waltz over to his prized retirement chest in the southwest corner of Aylwin's cluttered domicile. We smack our lips in anticipation of the bounty of gold and jewels one man must surely have stashed over the years, only to find a pittance of 22 gold. This feels like such a slap in the face. When first playing this quest many moons ago on console, I remember being so disappointed in the pittance received from Aylwin, coupled with the annoying slaughterfish bug. It just made me avoid the quest like the plague. I felt like it was one of those gotcha moments by the developers sharing how stupid one NPC could be to attempt to retire in a grand total of 22 gold and a bum leg to boot. I reckon it'd last about 2 days with Cyrodiil's current economy. However, I did learn during researching said quest, Aylwin wasn't as stupid as he looks, as according to the wiki, Aylwin's retirement savings chest was supposed to contain a minimum of 500 gold, and it's a fixed amount combined with a leveled amount, which means it would have been much more than 500 gold as we're only level 1 at the moment. But due to an engine bug, the 500 never actually appears, only the much smaller amount. Now this bug is fixed by the unofficial Oblivion patch, but only for PC players, so luckily we can collect the full hefty 500 septims. Unfortunately, that means console players are still getting stiffed. Lastly, Aylwin has some choice extra dialogue that actually doesn't appear in the game, being one final warning about taking his coveted fishing spots.
Still staying away from my fishing spots? I may be retired, but they're still mine, you understand? Yes, sir. No more fish for me. Just long, peaceful days ahead for old Aylwin Merriwald.